Hi, everyone. Welcome to our interview today with George and Neeb. This is Maria with Red Clover, the online digital database for children's literature that is value-based and diverse. Today we're here with George, who is the author of Pharaoh's Arrow. And in Pharaoh's Arrow, Akia goes on an adventure to get revenge, and she ends up going on a whole journey through ancient Egypt, and she ends up talking to the Almighty Pharaoh and encountering him. This is also a winner of the 2018 Purple Dragonfly Award, and it teaches empathy and how to take perspective while also bringing in some historical fiction. So thank you for joining us today, George.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So first, can you kind of just give us an introduction about yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, this is my first picture book, Pharaoh's Arrow, and I'm sort of new to the whole author and illustrator idea, but I teach school. I've taught elementary school in Canada for over 25 years, so I've got lots of experience reading picture books, but I'm new at writing and illustrating them.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, well, you did a really good job in Pharaoh's Arrow. You cannot tell that it's your first try at it. It's amazing. So can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for this book and where you kind of came up with the idea for Pharaoh's Arrow?
Yeah, well, as a teacher, I use picture books all the time, and what's great about them is they engage kids. It's a great way to teach about history, and in Canada here, we teach a unit called Ancient Cultures or Early Societies, and Ancient Egypt is always a popular one. And so just in my own teaching, I was having trouble finding picture books about Ancient Egypt. There's lots of information books, but picture books, there's not a lot, and because I like using them, I just thought, well, I'm going to write one that teachers could use and fill it with information and facts, and that's sort of where it all started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of going further into the book and its storyline, can you tell us a little bit about Akia and the main characters, her as well as the others in the book?
Yeah, well, the book's sort of told from Akia's point of view. She lives in an oasis with her father. Her mother had been killed, and the father moves them to an oasis far from the Nile. And she's having a great life there. She's very gymnastic, and she likes to climb trees and get figs out of the trees. And her father is a shepherd, I guess, for goats. And her father gets killed accidentally. She doesn't know that it's accidentally one day when this entourage of chariots go by. So she finds a golden arrow and assumes it was the Pharaoh's arrow and that he must have done this for some reason. So she goes on a quest to the capital of ancient Egypt, Memphis, to confront the Pharaoh about her father's death.
Yeah. So kind of bringing it back a little bit more about you, when did you start writing and what made you realize that this was something you wanted to do?
Well, I think as a teacher, I'm always writing, especially you're modeling to kids about writing. If you do creative writing, you're modeling about writing and character development and all those things. And I also liked writing plays. I wrote a lot of class plays for my class that they would perform. So this story actually is from a class play called Pharaoh's Arrow, and we were studying ancient Egypt years ago, and the class put it on as a play. And it was only just recently I've had more time. My kids now are getting older and doing their own thing, and I had more time to work it into a picture book. So I revamped the story, and then it was the art really that I enjoyed doing. I studied ancient Egyptian artistic style, that two-dimensional style, and I thought this would really be fun to illustrate a picture book in this style. So that's sort of how the story came about. It's challenging because the Egyptians, they had an interesting way to draw everything, and I researched all of that, but because it's always two-dimensional, you can't get a lot of points of view. You could do close-ups, but the characters always are drawn in profile in ancient Egypt, so I couldn't do bird's eye or ant's eye or anything like that. So I had to stick to the two-dimensional with some close-ups and things, but I think it turned out really well.
Yeah, it does look really good. You definitely like hit it spot on, and you can tell that you studied it and looked further into it. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I wanted that. I wanted that so that if you were an Egypt fan or someone learning about Egypt, it was historically accurate. The facts are correct. The way they drew things are correct. So it could be used for research too.
Yeah, it definitely is. So kind of also going along with that, what made you decide to put this idea and put this passion into children's literature in specific?
I guess just an interest in publishing and creating something that others could use. I've got lots of other ideas for historical fiction books just from my own teaching. I want to do one about ancient China, ancient Greece, just so there's a resource there for kids that they can use and just, enjoy ancient Egypt. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah. So what else do you do in your free time when you're not writing or you're not teaching? What do you like to do outside?
Well, I said I've got 3 sons that they're all teenagers now, so they're doing their own thing. But for years, we've spent time at a lake where I built a cabin. So I just wanted to learn how to build a cabin. So I taught myself, and over the years, I've been working on that. So we love to spend time up there in the summer. I live near the Grand River, so I love walking the river, taking the dog on long walks, and traveling is a big interest. And whenever I travel, I love to try to hit some of these museums, and there's ancient Egypt displays all over the world that are fascinating. So just recently I was in Paris and got to the Louvre, which has a world famous Egyptian display. So I love traveling, museums, art galleries, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fun. And so going along to Pharaoh's Arrow, who is your ideal reader for Pharaoh's Arrow?
Well, probably I wrote it towards the age group that I teach. So probably I teach around 8, 9-year-olds. I think that they understand the story best. I've had older kids love it, adults love it that are Egypt fans, and younger kids love it too. I think in writing it, because it deals with death and revenge, even though there's the underlying, story of forgiveness and taking responsibility and compassion, I thought that probably it was geared to about an 8 to 11-year-old understanding.
Yeah, I would agree. So also, if someone was on our website and they were browsing Red Clover and they were deciding which book to read, what is your ideal pitch that you would say to them? Hey, you should look at Pharaoh's Arrow and you should read it.
Yeah, well, when I do it, I say, come visit ancient Egypt in a tale told in rhyming couplets with historical pictures and authentic hieroglyphics too, reinforcing the text. So not only is the story told in English, but I researched hieroglyphics for a lot of the key words and put them on the pages too. So I think it's a great way to experience ancient Egypt. And the story, I think, is engaging too. And then at the back, I've put directions on how to create the artwork, how to replicate the artwork. So, they can try the paint technique that I used to get it to look like papyrus. I had one reviewer say, how did you do those pictures on papyrus? Wasn't that hard? So I thought that was pretty good because they're actually done on paper with pencil crayon. And then I use a paint technique where you paint, just tempera paint, and use a disposable cloth and rub it, and you get that texture that looks like papyrus. So it's easy to do. It took some experimenting, but I put the instructions in the back. And so readers can also try to create their own Egyptian art.
Yeah, very cool. So how, if a parent was reading your book or they just were looking for advice, especially since you have raised 3 sons, what advice would you give to parents or children regarding children's literature or regarding parenting in general?
Oh, I would say read as much as you can. I think reading is the key to doing well in school, being a good reader. So, there's so many books out there. There's so many types of books to motivate people that I think reading with your kids and exposing them to all sorts of literature, and everybody can find a favorite book and something that they love to read. So I would say read as much as you can.
Yeah, that's a good message. So is there anything else you would like to share with our audience today?
No, I just hope that they'll check out Pharaoh's Arrow and learn something about ancient Egypt. And I'm thrilled to have it on your website. I think it's a great website for diversity and value-based books. So I hope they'll check out this and all your books.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so as I said, this is George Neeb with Pharaoh's Arrow. So definitely check it out. Read about Akia and her whole adventure in ancient Egypt and her adventure to eventually meet the Almighty Pharaoh and learn a little bit about hieroglyphics and historic fiction along the way. This is Maria with Red Clover Reader, a value-based and diverse place for children's literature and parents and children alike. Thank you so much for joining us today, George, and thank you for watching.
Take care.